Some debts can never be repaid until fate demands the ultimate price. Golden hour bathes the exclusive beachfront in amber light as wealthy vacationers stroll without a care. Suddenly, a child's body crumples to the sand, his small hand clutching his chest. His father, a distinguished man in expensive resort wear, drops everything, crying out in desperation. Onlookers freeze, helpless, yet from among them steps a woman in simple clothes, moving with quiet authority. As she kneels beside the boy, something catches the light on her wrist, a hand-woven bracelet with distinctive colors and pattern. The desperate father reaches instinctively for his own wrist, where beneath his luxury watch lies an identical bracelet he's kept hidden for years. Their eyes lock. Time seems to stop. "I know how to help him," she says softly, her fingers already checking the boy's pulse. "Trust me one more time, Ethan. Is redemption possible when it arrives a decade too late? Listen as this story unfolds, where a moment of crisis reconnects three lives torn apart by choices made long ago, and a woman must decide whether to heal the child of the man who once shattered her world. But to understand how these two souls found themselves at this crossroads of fate, we must first go back to where our story truly begins. Not on that fateful beach, but in the life Ethan Lewis built after he left Kenya, a life of wealth and success that could never quite fill the emptiness he carried within. In the polished conference room of Lewis Enterprises, Ethan Lewis commanded attention. At 45, he stood tall in a perfectly tailored suit, his confident voice describing the multi-million-dollar resort project that would transform a sleepy coastal town into a luxury destination. The PowerPoint slides changed with each decisive click of his remote, showcasing gleaming buildings and pristine beaches. And with the completion of Phase 1 next quarter, we project a 30% return on investment, Ethan concluded, his voice steady and assured. Applause filled the room, executives nodding with approval. Yet as Ethan took a sip of water and glanced toward the floor-to-ceiling windows, something flashed across his face, a momentary shadow, a glimpse of emptiness that vanished as quickly as it appeared. He twisted his wrist slightly, an unconscious habit, revealing the faint pale circle on his ring finger where a wedding band had once been. "Brilliant presentation as always, Ethan," said board member Jonathan, slapping him on the back. Eleanor Matthews, the oldest board member at 68, observed Ethan with knowing eyes. While others gathered their materials, she approached him quietly. "You know, Ethan," she said, her voice gentle but direct, "with all this success, all these achievements." She gestured to the room, the presentations, the empire he'd built. "I've never once seen you truly smile." Ethan's polite expression froze momentarily. He recovered quickly, slipping his professional mask back into place. "I smile plenty, Eleanor," he replied with practiced charm, "especially on days when the board approves my proposals." But as Eleanor walked away, Ethan's gaze drifted back to the window, to the vast sky beyond the skyscrapers, to somewhere or someone very far away. While Ethan collected his presentation materials, a different scene unfolded in the pristine corridor outside the conference room. 8-year-old Liam Lewis sat on a plush leather bench, his small legs swinging slightly above the polished marble floor. His otherwise sunny face was creased with concentration as his trembling hand carefully removed a small pill from its container. Ms. Reynolds, the elderly receptionist, watched him with gentle concern. "Would you like some water, sweetheart?" She offered, already pouring a cup. "I'm okay, thank you," Liam replied with practiced politeness. "I know how to take my medicine." As he swallowed the pill, he discreetly pulled out his wallet, flipping it open just enough to glimpse the worn photo inside. A smiling woman with honey blonde hair, whom he barely remembered in person but visited in his mind every day. The conference room doors opened, and executives streamed out. Ethan emerged last, still deep in conversation with a colleague. Then, as if crossing an invisible threshold, everything about him changed the moment he spotted Liam. The businesslike expression melted away. His shoulders relaxed, his eyes softened, and a genuine warmth spread across his face. Transformation so complete, it was as if another man entirely had stepped into Ethan's expensive shoes. "Hey, buddy," he called, quickening his pace. Liam's face lit up. "Dad," Ms. Reynolds handed Liam a wrapped caramel as Ethan approached. "Such a well-behaved young man you have," she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Watching father and son reunite, she sighed softly. "If only the boy had both parents," she murmured, too quietly for them to hear. Ethan knelt down instantly at eye level with his son. "How was school today?" he asked, inspecting Liam's face carefully. "Did you feel okay?" The tenderness in Ethan's voice revealed the center of his universe, this small brave boy with his mother's eyes and a heart that needed extra care. "Are we really staying for a whole week this time, Dad?" Liam asked as their sleek black SUV wound along the coastal highway. The afternoon sun glinted off the ocean to their right, casting golden ripples across the water's surface. "That's the plan, buddy," Ethan replied, though his attention was divided. His left hand loosely gripped the steering wheel, while his right held his phone, his thumb scrolling through emails with practiced efficiency. "Just need to finalize this deal, and then we'll have plenty of time for fun." "You said that last?" "Time," Liam observed without accusation, simply stating a fact as he pressed his forehead against the cool glass window. Outside, seagulls wheeled against the azure sky, free and unencumbered. Ethan glanced guiltily at his son, then back at his phone. 3 missed calls from the investment team, 17 unread emails, and 2 urgent text messages from the project manager. The business never stopped. As Ethan adjusted his grip on the steering wheel, sunlight caught on something around his wrist, a simple hand-woven bracelet of red, black, and green threads, worn and faded next to his expensive platinum watch. The contrast was striking. A $10,000 timepiece beside a trinket worth perhaps $5, yet it was the bracelet that Ethan unconsciously touched whenever he was stressed, a habit he didn't even realize he had. "Dad, why did they turn off that song?" Liam asked as the radio DJ abruptly cut short a ballad about lost love. Ethan hadn't even noticed the music until Liam mentioned it, but the lyrics suddenly registered. Something about regrets and second chances, about a love abandoned. His jaw tightened as he punched the button for another station with unnecessary force. "Just looking for the traffic report," he said lightly. Liam studied his father's face with a child's unfiltered curiosity. "Dad, is it true that people can love someone their whole life, even if they're not together anymore?" The question hit Ethan like a physical blow. His fingers tightened on the steering wheel, knuckles whitening momentarily. Where had that come from? Had Liam been thinking about his mother again? Or had the song prompted this sudden philosophical inquiry? Ethan cleared his throat. "That's a big question, buddy. Mrs. Garcia said her husband died 10 years ago, but she still loves him every day," Liam continued thoughtfully. "She said real love doesn't have an expiration date." Ethan's eyes flickered to the rearview mirror, but he wasn't seeing the road behind them. For a brief moment, he was seeing a different place, a different time, a sunset over red earth, laughter like music, and eyes that held the warmth of 1,000 welcomes. "Your Mrs. Garcia sounds like a wise woman," he finally said softly. As the coastal town came into view ahead, neither father nor son spoke again, each lost in their own thoughts about love and loss. Meanwhile, in a modest community clinic across town, Maya Kimathi moved with quiet grace through her afternoon duties. At 38, she carried herself with the dignified posture of someone who had endured storms, yet remained standing. Her nursing uniform was crisp and neat, her movements efficient yet gentle as she entered room 3 where her next patient waited. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Collins," Maya greeted, her Kenyan accent softening the words. "How are you feeling today?" Eleanor Collins, a 70-year-old widow with silver hair and tired eyes, attempted a smile that didn't quite take. "I'm here, aren't I? That's something—" Maya recognized the hollowness behind those words. She checked Mrs. Collins' blood pressure, noting the numbers on the chart before sitting down on the stool beside the examination table. And then immediately continuing with the clinical assessment, she simply took the older woman's hand in hers. You're missing him more today, aren't you? Maya asked gently. The elderly woman's composure crumbled. 3 months ago today, she whispered. 46 years together. And now. A tear slid down her wrinkled cheek. Everyone keeps saying I should be moving on by now. Maya shook her head, her dark eyes reflecting deep understanding. Grief isn't something we get over like a cold, Mrs. Collins. It's something we learn to carry. She reached for a tissue, passing it to her patient. Sometimes the wounds we can't see hurt the most, don't they? As Maya leaned forward to check Mrs. Collins's heart rate, her sleeve pulled back, revealing a hand-woven bracelet of red, black, and green threads, faded but meticulously maintained, encircling her slender wrist. Mrs. Collins noticed it immediately, her eyes widening slightly. You still wear your wedding band, she observed, nodding toward the bracelet. Maya's fingers instinctively touched the woven band, a fleeting sadness crossing her features before being replaced by quiet determination. This isn't about marriage anymore, she replied softly. It's a reminder of strength, not loss. Every time I look at it, I remember that I survived. Their conversation was interrupted by Dr. Williams requesting Maya's assistance with another patient. But as she stood to leave, Mrs. Collins caught her hand. You know what, dear? You've given me more healing today than any medication could. Sometimes we just need someone who understands that pain isn't a weakness. Maya squeezed the older woman's hand, her smile gentle but powerful. We heal others with the wounds we've survived ourselves, she said. That's what makes them meaningful. As she walked down the corridor to her next patient, Maya's bracelet caught the light, a small, colorful testament to a past she'd learned to honor without being imprisoned by it. Later that evening, Maya unlocked the door to her apartment on the 3rd floor of a modest building, not far from the clinic. Unlike the stark, impersonal spaces many single professionals maintained, Maya's home told the story of her journey. Through carefully chosen details, the small living room featured hand-woven baskets from Kenya, arranged on shelves, vibrant fabrics draped over a reading chair, and black and white photographs of majestic wildlife hung in simple frames. A bookshelf held medical textbooks alongside poetry collections and novels, while a potted African violet bloomed on the windowsill, life thriving under her attentive care. Maya set her keys in a wooden bowl by the door and moved to the kitchen, where she filled a kettle for tea. In the corner of the living room, a small side table served as a makeshift altar of remembrance. A solitary candle stood unlit beside a wooden photo frame laying face down, its contents hidden from casual view but honored by its presence. Maya struck a match and lit the candle, its flame casting a warm glow as she began preparing her dinner, a simple ugali and sukuma wiki dish her mother had taught her to make, the familiar scents filling her apartment with memories of home. As she chopped vegetables, her phone rang. Maya checked the caller ID and smiled. "Hello, Sophia," she answered, tucking the phone between ear and shoulder. "Are you sitting alone in your apartment again?" came the warm, slightly raspy voice of her 55-year-old colleague. "It's your anniversary today, isn't it? 10 years. Maya's knife paused momentarily over the cutting board. "You remembered?" "Of course I remembered. You're always extra quiet on this day. Come have dinner with me and Richard." "No. One should be alone on a day like this." Maya glanced at the calendar on her wall, the date circled not with sadness but with purpose. "Thank you, but I need this evening to myself. Not to mourn, but to celebrate how far I've come." "Maya," Sophia's voice softened. "It's been a decade. You've built a beautiful life here. Maybe it's time to..." "To what?" Maya asked gently. "To pretend it never happened. To erase the past." She resumed her chopping, each slice precise and controlled. "The memories don't hurt anymore, Sophia. They remind me of my strength. I'm not alone tonight because I'm sad. I'm alone because I'm honoring the journey." After they hung up, Maya carried her simple meal to the small balcony overlooking the ocean in the distance. The sunset painted the sky in fiery oranges and deep purples, not unlike the Kenyan skies she still carried in her heart. She raised her teacup in a silent toast to the horizon, to the woman she had become. Not to what was lost, she whispered to herself, but to what was found. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the beach as Ethan and Liam walked along the shoreline. The resort development site was visible in the distance, temporary offices and survey markers dotting what would eventually become an exclusive oceanfront property. But for now, this stretch of beach remained undeveloped, a natural sanctuary of sand, waves, and endless sky. Ethan's phone buzzed continuously. With each notification, his fingers twitched, the impulse to check messages deeply ingrained after years of being perpetually available. He'd taken this walk to spend quality time with Liam, yet the invisible tether of work maintained its pull. "Dad, look! I found a sand dollar!" Liam called out, his excitement momentarily breaking through Ethan's distraction. "That's great!" "Buddy," Ethan replied, glancing up briefly before returning to an urgent email from the project manager. Liam ran ahead, his small figure darting toward the water's edge. For a boy with a serious heart condition, these moments of uninhibited joy were precious, and all too rare. The sea breeze tousled his hair as he bent down to examine shells, his face illuminated with a brightness that daily life in the city rarely evoked. A little ways down the beach, an elderly couple walked hand in hand, their pace unhurried, their connection evident in the synchronized rhythm of their steps. The woman leaned slightly against her husband's shoulder, laughing at something he said. Their contentment radiated outward, a lifetime of companionship distilled into simple gestures of affection. Ethan couldn't help but watch them, a peculiar ache spreading through his chest. What would it be like to grow old with someone? To walk on beaches decades from now, silver-haired but still holding hands. The couple nodded politely as they passed by. The woman smiled warmly at Liam, then gave Ethan a knowing look, the kind exchanged between those who understand what truly matters in life. Something shifted in Ethan's expression. He looked down at his phone, at the half-composed email, on the screen, then back at his son playing in the fading sunlight. With sudden resolution, he powered off the device and slipped it into his pocket. "Hey, Liam," he called, jogging to catch up. "Show me where you found that sand dollar." "Maybe we can find more before sunset." As he knelt beside his son on the cool sand, a quiet voice seemed to whisper in his mind, "You were right, Maya. I'm missing the best things in life." The thought came so suddenly, so unexpectedly, that Ethan nearly looked around to see if someone had spoken aloud, but there was only Liam, the waves, and the vast open sky above them. At the northern end of the same beach, where rocky outcroppings created natural boundaries, Maya walked alone along the water's edge. This evening ritual had become her form of moving meditation, a time to shed the day's emotional weight and reconnect with herself. Her sandals dangled from her fingers as the cool waves lapped at her ankles. The workday was behind her, but one patient still lingered in her thoughts. A young woman diagnosed with rheumatic heart disease, whose frightened eyes reminded Maya of her own journey into the unknown years ago. Lost in thought, Maya nearly missed the elderly woman struggling with her shoelace on a nearby bench. The woman's arthritis-knotted fingers fumbled with the simple task, her frustration evident. "May I help you with that?" Maya offered, approaching with a gentle smile. "Oh, would you, dear? These old hands don't work like they used to," the woman replied gratefully. Maya knelt down, quickly securing the laces. "There you go. Will you be all right walking back?" "Yes, thank you. My house is just up those steps." The woman studied Maya's face with the straightforward curiosity of the elderly. Such kindness from a stranger. "A good-hearted woman like you. Why are you walking alone on such a beautiful evening?" The question might have seemed intrusive, from someone younger, but Maya recognized it as the genuine concern of a generation that valued partnership above independence. "Sometimes life gives us what we need, not what we want," Maya replied with quiet dignity. "I've found peace in my solitude," the woman nodded thoughtfully. "Well, peace is nothing to take for granted. Go enjoy your walk, dear." Maya continued down the beach, eventually finding her favorite spot near a cluster of smooth boulders. She sat facing the horizon, watching as the sun began its descent into the sea. From her pocket she withdrew a worn envelope, the paper softened by years of handling. She didn't need to read the letter inside anymore. Its words had long ago been committed to memory. Instead, she simply held it, acknowledging what it represented. The end of one life, the beginning of another. Today marks the day I stop living in the past, she whispered to the wind. With gentle determination, she released the letter, watching as the ocean breeze carried it briefly aloft before it settled on the water's surface, floating away with the tide. Maya closed her eyes, feeling lighter than she had in years. When she opened them again, the horizon seemed wider somehow, full of possibilities yet to be discovered. A distant cry shattered the tranquility of Maya's moment. Her head turned sharply toward the sound. A man's voice, panicked and desperate. "Help! Somebody help my son!" Instinct took over before conscious thought. Maya was on her feet immediately, her nurse's training activating at the first note of emergency. Through the gathering crowd about a quarter-mile down the beach, she could see a small figure collapsed on the sand and a man kneeling beside him in obvious distress. People had begun to cluster around, their helpless expressions revealing a common human reaction to crisis, the desire to help coupled with the paralysis of not knowing how. Maya broke into a run, her focus narrowing to the emergency ahead, her mind already cataloguing possible scenarios and responses. As she drew closer, she could see it was a young boy, perhaps 8 or 9, clutching his chest, his face alarmingly pale. Her heart pounded as recognition dawned. This was a cardiac event. And in that moment, Maya knew that everything in her life had prepared her for this critical moment. As the final rays of sunlight painted the beach in amber hues, Maya's world narrowed to the small figure, collapsed on the sand. Years of medical training took over, pushing aside the shock of recognition that threatened to paralyze her. The crowd parted as she rushed forward, her nurse's instincts guiding every move. The boy lay motionless, his complexion alarmingly pale against the golden sand. His lips had taken on a bluish tint, cyanosis, her medical mind registered automatically. Beside him knelt a man whose expensive clothes contrasted sharply with the raw desperation in his eyes. "Please," he begged anyone who would listen, "someone help my son." The gathering crowd stood frozen in that peculiar paralysis that often grips bystanders during emergencies, wanting to help but afraid of doing the wrong thing. Several had phones out, presumably calling for emergency services, but the boy needed immediate intervention. Maya dropped to her knees beside the child, her trained eyes quickly assessing his condition. "I'm a nurse," she said firmly, not yet looking at the father. "What's his medical history?" "He has a congenital heart condition," the man answered, his voice breaking. "Medication in his pocket." "Please." Maya's fingers moved with practiced precision, checking the boy's pulse, weak but present, and positioning his body properly. She located the medication in his pocket and recognized it immediately. The same prescription she'd administered countless times to pediatric cardiac patients. "I need everyone to step back and give him air," she commanded, her voice cutting through the murmurs of the crowd. Several older women in the gathering began whispering prayers, their worried eyes fixed on the small boy fighting for his life. As Maya leaned forward to administer emergency care, her sleeve pulled back slightly, revealing the hand-woven bracelet. She never removed red, black, and green threads woven in a distinctive pattern, unique to a specific region of Kenya. The father's gaze flickered to it momentarily, then returned to his son's face, the connection not yet registering through his panic. With expert movements, Maya administered the medication and began gentle chest compressions, careful not to overtax the boy's fragile heart. "Talk to him," she instructed the father. "Let him hear your voice." "Liam," the man called softly, "Daddy's here, you're going to be okay." At the sound of his father's voice, the boy's eyelids fluttered. A collective sigh of relief passed through the onlookers. In the distance, sirens wailed, growing closer. "Keep talking," Maya encouraged, still focused entirely on saving the child. Only when the boy's breathing steadied and color began returning to his face did Maya finally allow herself to look fully at the man kneeling opposite her. It was then that an older woman in the crowd placed a hand on the father's shoulder. "You're very fortunate, sir," she said kindly. "This woman just saved your son's life." The father looked up to properly see his son's savior for the first time, gratitude washing over his features, but as their eyes met, everything around them seemed to fade away. The sounds of the beach, the waves, the distant sirens, the murmuring crowd, all receded as recognition dawned. His gaze dropped to the bracelet on her wrist, then to his own wrist, where an identical bracelet lay hidden beneath his expensive watch. 10 years disappeared in an instant, Maya, he whispered, her name falling from his lips like a prayer and a confession all at once. As their eyes meet across the child between them, we pause. 2 bracelets, 2 hearts, and a decade of silence shattered in a single moment. What would you do if fate placed your greatest regret and your deepest love directly in your path? Share your thoughts in the comments below and continue listening to discover the unexpected twists that await. The ambulance's flashing lights cast rhythmic red pulses across the beach as the paramedics worked efficiently to stabilize Liam. Maya stood to the side, giving the emergency team her assessment in the clipped professional language of healthcare workers. The boy's eyes were open now, his gaze finding hers. "Thank you, Angel," he whispered, his small voice barely audible above the commotion. Maya smiled gently, touching his hand. "You're very brave, Liam." The paramedics prepared to transfer him to the ambulance, securing the oxygen mask over his face. "Blood pressure's stabilizing," one reported. "Good job with the emergency response. Are you local?" "Yes," Maya answered. "Harbor Heights Community Clinic." Ethan stood nearby, still visibly shaken, watching the interaction with an expression that combined relief for his son with utter disbelief at Maya's presence. 10 years had passed, yet he would have known her anywhere. Her features had matured, gaining a quiet dignity, but her eyes remained the same, deep wells of compassion that had once looked at him with love, then heartbreak, and now something unreadable. An elderly woman who had been watching the scene unfold approached Ethan, her lined face sympathetic. "You're a fortunate man," she said, patting his arm. "That woman there, she knew exactly what to do. Your boy might not have made it otherwise." Ethan nodded, unable to form words as the paramedics raised the stretcher with Liam securely. "Fastened to it." "Sir," a paramedic called to him, "we are ready to transport your son to Memorial Hospital. You can ride with us." "Yes, of course," Ethan replied automatically, but his feet seemed rooted to the sand. He turned toward Maya, who was already backing away from the scene, clearly intending to disappear as quickly as she had appeared. "Wait," he called, his voice finding its strength. "Please." Maya paused, her expression guarded as Ethan approached. The beach crowd had begun to disperse now that the emergency was over, but several onlookers still watched with the lingering curiosity that follows dramatic events. "I need to thank you," Ethan said, his voice low and urgent. The paramedics called to him again, but he barely heard them. "Maya, You should go," she interrupted quietly. "Your son needs you." But Ethan couldn't move, couldn't take his eyes from her face. After all these years, all the scenarios he had imagined if they ever met again, none had prepared him for this reality. 1,000 questions flooded his mind. How was she here? How long had she been in America? Did she know about his life now? Had she seen him before today? "Dad," Liam's voice called weakly from the stretcher, breaking the spell. The paramedic approached them directly. "Sir, we need to leave now." Ethan nodded, torn between his son and the ghost from his past. "I need to know how to find you," he said quickly to Maya. "Please, I need to thank you properly." Maya looked past him to the ambulance where Liam waited. Her expression softened slightly. "Take care of your son, Ethan. That's all that matters now." As Ethan turned to go, a paramedic handed him Liam's personal effects. "Your boy dropped these when he fell." Among the items was a small wallet that fell open in Ethan's hands, revealing a worn photo of a woman, Liam's mother. For a fleeting moment, both Maya and Ethan's gaze fell upon it, another ghost between them. As the ambulance doors prepared to close, Ethan turned back one last time, his expression haunted by the past and present colliding so unexpectedly. "Maya," he said, his voice barely audible above the ambulance engine. How is this possible?" She stood motionless on the sand, the evening breeze gently moving the loose strands of her hair. Around them, the beach had almost emptied, the earlier commotion fading like the day's last light. For a moment, it seemed she might simply walk away without answering. Instead, she took one step forward, her voice low but clear. "My name is Maya, your wife from Kenya. Remember me." The words hung in the air between them, simple yet devastating in their impact. Ethan's face drained of color, as though he, not Liam, might collapse at any moment. The paramedics, sensing the tension but unaware of its cause, waited impatiently. "Sir, we really need to go now," one insisted. Ethan's lips parted, but no words came. What could he possibly say in this moment that wouldn't sound hollow after 10 years of silence? His fingers unconsciously moved to his wrist, to the bracelet he'd kept hidden beneath expensive watches. His own private penance, a reminder of what he had sacrificed for success. Maya's eyes followed the movement, her expression impossible to read. "Go with your son," she said simply. "He needs you." The ambulance attendant placed a firm hand on Ethan's shoulder. "Sir," Maya took a step backward, her intention to leave clear. To anyone watching, it might have seemed like a normal interaction, a grateful father thanking a good Samaritan. But for Ethan and Maya, the beach had become a surreal landscape where past and present bled together like watercolors. "I need to speak with you," Ethan said quickly, almost desperately. "Please." Maya's answer was to turn away, walking rapidly toward the boardwalk steps. The crowd had completely dissipated now, leaving no witnesses to the quiet devastation. On Ethan's face, as he watched her retreat from his life a second time, "Dad!" Liam's weak voice called from inside the ambulance. Ethan's shoulders sagged as reality reasserted itself. His son needed him. Whatever ghosts had returned from his past would have to wait. He climbed into the ambulance, his gaze still fixed on Maya's diminishing figure, until the doors closed and the vehicle pulled away, sirens once again filling the evening air. Maya watched from the boardwalk as the ambulance disappeared down the coastal road, her composed expression finally crumbling as she wiped away a single tear. "My wife," she whispered to herself. A title without meaning for 10 years, until today. Memorial Hospital's pediatric wing buzzed with the quiet efficiency, typical of medical facilities in the evening hours. In a private room secured by Ethan's insurance and influence, Liam rested peacefully, his condition stabilized. The cardiac specialist had already visited, confirming what the emergency team suspected. Liam had experienced an acute episode triggered by exertion and excitement, but thanks to the prompt intervention, no lasting damage was expected. Outside, in the waiting area, Ethan sat alone, his usual commanding presence diminished by the day's events. The hospital's harsh fluorescent lighting cast shadows across his face, accentuating lines that hadn't been there 10 years before. His fingers moved restlessly, turning his wrist over and over, a habit he'd developed years ago. Beneath his luxury watch, a Patek Philippe worth more than what most people earned in months, lay the hand-woven bracelet of red, black, and green threads. Unlike Maya's well-maintained one, his showed signs of being hidden away. The colors faded unevenly where the watch had pressed against it. He never removed it, this silent reminder of what he had sacrificed, yet he kept it covered. A private penance rather than a public declaration. "Mr. Lewis!" Ethan looked up to see an older nurse standing before him, her grey hair pulled back in a practical bun, her eyes kind but evaluating. "Yes," he responded, quickly adjusting his sleeve to cover the bracelet. The nurse smiled, gently. "Your son is doing very well. He's asking for you." Ethan nodded gratefully, but before he could rise, the nurse continued. "I couldn't help noticing your bracelet earlier," she said. "It's very distinctive and Kenyan, isn't it?" Ethan froze momentarily. "Yes. How did you know?" "I work with a nurse who wears one exactly like it, never takes it off." The woman's eyes held a knowing look. "She was the one who saved your boy today, wasn't she? Maya Kimathi." Hearing Maya's full name spoken aloud after so many years sent a jolt through Ethan. "You know her. 5 years now." She's one of our best at Harbor Heights Clinic. The nurse studied his reaction carefully. She's never mentioned you, but I saw how she looked at you on the beach and how you looked at her. Ethan's professional mask slipped completely. She works here, at this hospital. The community. Clinic mostly, but she rotates through here. Small world, isn't it? There was no judgment in the nurse's voice, just quiet observation, or perhaps not so small. Perhaps just the size it needs to be for people to find their way back to each other when it's time. Ethan looked down at his hands, unsure how to respond to this unexpected confidence from a stranger. She never speaks of her past, the nurse continued, her voice softening. But she wears that bracelet like it's part of her, just like you hide yours beneath that expensive watch. Ethan's head snapped up, surprised by her perception. The nurse simply smiled. I'm Patricia, by the way. I've been a nurse for 43 years. You learn to notice things in my profession, especially the things people try to hide. As she turned to leave, she added, your son is awake and the best medicine for him right now is seeing his father. She paused at the doorway. And Mr. Lewis, whatever happened between you and Maya, remember that time doesn't heal all wounds, only truth does that. Ethan watched her walk away, her simple wisdom hanging in the air. After a moment, he rose and went to Liam's room, his mind still reeling from the day's revelations. His son lay small against the white hospital bedding, but his eyes lit up when Ethan entered. Dad, the doctor said I can go home tomorrow. Ethan forced a smile, sitting beside the bed and taking his son's hand. That's great news, buddy. But as he comforted Liam, his thoughts remained with Maya, and with the realization that for 10 years she had been living her life mere miles from his own, their paths somehow never crossing until today. Maya's apartment felt unusually confining that evening. After years of finding comfort in the sanctuary she had created, tonight the walls seemed to press in around her, vibrating with the aftershocks of seeing Ethan again. Her normally steady hands trembled slightly as she set her keys in the wooden bowl by the door. Without turning on the lights, she moved through the darkened living room to her bedroom, opening the bottom drawer of her dresser, a place she rarely accessed anymore. Inside lay a sandalwood box, its surface smooth from years of occasional handling. She lifted it carefully and carried it to her bed, sitting cross-legged as she removed the lid. The scent of preserved memories drifted upward, a hint of spices, old paper, and dried flowers. On top lay a stack of yellowed envelopes, each marked with the same stamp, "Return to sender." Beneath them, wrapped in a simple cloth, was a wedding photograph. Ethan and Maya standing beneath an acacia tree, her in a traditional Kenyan wedding dress adorned with beadwork, him in a white shirt and local textiles, both beaming with the certainty of young love. Maya traced the outline of their faces with a gentle finger. 10 years had etched new lines around Ethan's eyes, had added silver to his temples, had replaced youthful optimism with something harder, more guarded. But seeing him again had awakened something she thought long buried. Not love, precisely, but the sharp ache of recognition, of shared history. Her phone rang, startling her from her reverie. Sophia's name flashed on the screen. "Maya, I just heard what happened at the beach today. Are you all right?" Maya sighed, unsurprised that news had traveled quickly through the hospital grapevine. "I'm fine, Sophia. Just a medical emergency. Patricia called me. She said it was Ethan Lewis's son, that you knew him." Sophia's voice was gentle but probing. "Is it true? Was that him? Your husband?" The word husband hung in the air, technically still accurate despite the decade of separation. Maya had never legally divorced Ethan. There had been no need when he had simply vanished from her life. "Yes," she admitted quietly. "It was Ethan." "Oh, Maya." Sophia's voice softened further. "He hasn't changed, has he? Still handsome, still successful, and still wearing your bracelet under his watch, according to Patricia." Maya's fingers instinctively touched her own bracelet. "He kept it." The question escaped before she could stop it. "Apparently, what are you going to do?" Maya looked down at the photograph in her lap, at two young people who no longer existed. "Nothing, Sophia. He made his choice 10 years ago. His son needed medical help and I provided it, that's all. But even as she spoke the words, Maya knew the universe had other plans. After 10 years of protecting her rebuilt heart, fate had thrust her directly back into Ethan's path, and more complicatedly, into the life of an innocent child who had needed her. "He'll try to find you," Sophia said with certainty. Maya closed the box gently, returning the memories to their resting place. "Yes," she agreed softly. "He will." The hotel suite overlooking the ocean would have impressed most visitors, with its panoramic views and luxurious furnishings, but Ethan hardly noticed the surroundings as he paced across the plush carpet. In the adjoining bedroom, Liam slept peacefully, exhausted from his medical ordeal, and comforted by the doctor's assurance that he could resume normal activities with proper medication and monitoring within days. Ethan paused at the window, staring out at the dark ocean where, earlier that day, his past had collided with his present in ways he could never have anticipated. Maya, here in America, not just visiting but working as a nurse, apparently established enough to have colleagues who knew her well. His cell phone felt unnaturally heavy in his hand as he dialed his family physician in New York, calculating the time difference and hoping the doctor would still be in his office. Dr. Richardson speaking. "James, it's Ethan Lewis. I need a favor." "Ethan, I heard about Liam's episode. Is he all right?" "Yes, he's stable now." Ethan hesitated before continuing. "I need information about a local medical facility, Harbor Heights Community Clinic. Do you have any contacts there?" A brief pause. "I can make some calls." "What kind of information are you looking for?" Ethan considered how much to reveal. "There's a nurse there who helped Liam today. I want to thank her properly." "I see." Something in Dr. Richardson's tone suggested he understood there was more to the story. "Give me a few minutes to reach out to some colleagues. I'll call you back." While waiting, Ethan opened his laptop and typed Maya Kimathi nurse into the search engine. The results were sparse but revealing. A small article in a local community newspaper about immigrant healthcare workers making a difference, with Maya's name mentioned among others. A brief listing on the clinic's outdated website. A photo from a community health fair showing Maya providing blood pressure screenings to elderly residents. The image transfixed him, Maya in her professional environment, her expression focused. Yet gentle as she attended to an elderly woman, she looked settled, at peace. She had built a life here, one that clearly brought her fulfillment. His phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. "Ethan, I spoke with the chief of medicine at Memorial. Your nurse is Maya Kimathi, originally from Kenya, been with Harbor Heights for about 5 years. Apparently she's quite respected, specialized training in pediatric and geriatric care. Before that, she worked at a clinic in Boston while completing her certification." Ethan's mind reeled with this new information. Boston? She had been in the country even longer than 5 years. "Is there anything else you can tell me about her?" "Not much. Private person, according to my contact. Dedicated professional. Lives alone. No family mentioned." Dr. Richardson paused. "Ethan, if you don't mind my asking, who is she to you?" The question hung between them, deceptively simple yet impossibly complex. Who was Maya to him now? His estranged wife, a stranger, a ghost made flesh. "It's complicated, James. Thank you for the information." After ending the call, Ethan moved to his suitcase, opening a hidden compartment he'd maintained through countless luggage upgrades over the years. From it, he withdrew a small wooden box containing the only tangible reminders of his time in Kenya. A handful of photographs, a carved figure of a giraffe Maya had given him, and a stack of letters, her letters marked "Return to Sender" in his father's handwriting. He had discovered them years later, after his father's death, hidden in a drawer of the family estate's study. By then, it was too late. All his attempts to locate Maya in Kenya had failed. She had vanished from her village, her teaching position filled by someone else, her family relocated to another region according to vague reports. Now, as he spread the unopened letters across the hotel desk, Ethan felt the full weight of what had been lost, and the unexpected, fragile possibility that had emerged from today's crisis. Maya was here. After 10 years of carrying his regret like a hidden wound, he had been given a chance he never thought possible. His fingers trembled slightly as he carefully opened the first letter, yellowed with age, to read the words Maya had written a decade ago, words that had never reached him until tonight. The letter in Ethan's hands transported him back through time and space, to a world of red earth and endless skies, where his life had once taken an unexpected turn. 10 years earlier, a younger Ethan Lewis had stepped off a small propeller, plane onto Kenyan soil, his expensive shoes immediately coated with the distinctive rust-colored dust. At 35, he'd already established himself as the rising star of his family's company. But this project was different, a chance to prove himself beyond the family name. The Lewis Foundation's school-building initiative in rural Kenya was part philanthropy, part business expansion, and completely unlike anything he'd tackled before. "Mr. Lewis, and welcome to Kitale." The local project coordinator greeted him with a firm handshake. "We're excited to begin this partnership. The village has prepared a welcome for you." Ethan nodded, adjusting his designer sunglasses against the brilliant African sun. "I'm looking forward to it, and please call me Ethan." That afternoon, the village elders had organized a modest gathering beneath the sprawling branches of an ancient acacia tree. Children performed traditional dances, their movements both playful and precise, while the adults looked on with a mixture of hope and wariness. This wasn't the first time Westerners had arrived with grand promises, after all. It was there, among the swirl of color and sound, that Ethan first saw Maya. Unlike the other women who watched the proceedings with quiet deference, she stood, slightly apart, a book tucked under her arm, her keen eyes evaluating him with unabashed directness. When the formalities concluded, she approached him without hesitation. "Mr. Lewis," she said in perfect English, "I'm Maya Kimathi, the school's senior teacher. I hope you've come to build something that will last, not just another abandoned project." Her forthrightness caught him off guard. "I assure you, we're committed to this project." She smiled then, a transformation that momentarily stole his prepared responses. "Good. Because these children deserve more than good intentions that disappear when the cameras do." "There are no cameras," Ethan replied, surprised by his own candor. Maya studied him for a moment, her initial skepticism softening. "Then perhaps you're different after all. Come, I'll show you our school. What we have, and what we dream. It could be—" As they walked through the village, children trailing behind them in a curious procession, Ethan found himself captivated not just by Maya's intelligence and passion, but by her vision, a perspective that challenged his polished, corporate worldview with its authenticity and purpose. "I came to Kenya thinking I'd build a school," Ethan would later tell her. "I never expected Kenya to rebuild me." That first afternoon marked the beginning of a transformation neither could have predicted, one that would take the ambitious businessman far from the path his family had mapped out for him, into territory where the heart, not ambition, would guide his decisions. The weeks that followed changed Ethan in ways no board meeting or business deal ever had. Morning construction meetings gave way to afternoon walks with Maya, where his carefully constructed professional persona gradually fell away, revealing the man beneath the tailored suits and practiced confidence. "Why teaching?" he asked her one evening, as they sat on a boulder overlooking the valley, the setting sun painting the landscape in magnificent oranges and purples. Maya considered the question, running her fingers along the spine of the book she always seemed to carry. "Because knowledge is the one thing nobody can take from you," she answered simply. "In a world where so much is uncertain, education is power, especially for girls who are told their dreams must be small." Ethan watched her profile against the darkening sky, struck by how naturally her inner conviction translated to outer beauty. In New York, he'd dated sophisticated women who spent fortunes cultivating an appearance of elegance. Maya possessed something far more potent, an authenticity that made all those previous relationships seem like pale imitations of connection. 2 months into his 3-month assignment, Ethan found himself at the local market with Maya, helping her select fabrics for a school project. The vibrant textiles drew his attention, particularly those woven with red, black, and green threads, the colors of Kenya. "These are beautiful," he commented, running his fingers along the intricate patterns. "Those colors tell our story," Maya explained. "Red for the bloodshed in the struggle for independence, black for our people, and green for our land." She selected a length of the fabric, then asked the vendor for something else. A small hand-woven bracelet made from the same colors. That evening, as they watched the sunset from their boulder, Maya took his hand. Without ceremony, she tied the bracelet around his wrist. "What's this for?" Ethan asked, touched by the unexpected gift. "To remember where your heart found home," she said softly. "When you return to America," instead of the expected response, a reminder that his assignment would soon end, Ethan found different words on his lips. "What if I don't want to leave?" Maya's eyes widened slightly. "Your life is in New York." "My job is in New York," he corrected, surprising himself with his certainty. "My life, I'm beginning to think my life could be wherever you are." From his pocket, he withdrew a similar bracelet he'd purchased secretly when Maya wasn't looking. With gentle movements, he tied it around her wrist, his fingers lingering against her skin. "To remember that my love has no conditions," told her, echoing an African proverb she'd taught him weeks earlier. "No borders, no expiration date." Under the vast Kenyan sky, their first kiss tasted of promise and possibility, neither yet aware of the forces that would test the vow made with simple woven threads. "In America, we exchange rings," Ethan whispered. "But these mean more to me than any diamond ever could." The wedding was nothing like the society event Ethan's mother had always envisioned for her son. No cathedral with stained glass windows, no orchestra, no champagne fountains or ice sculptures. Instead, beneath the same acacia tree where they'd first spoken, Ethan and Maya exchanged vows in a ceremony that blended her Kenyan traditions with simple Western elements. Maya wore a dress of local fabric, adorned with intricate beadwork that the village women had spent weeks creating. Her crown of small white flowers circled her head, and her feet were bare against the red earth. Ethan had abandoned his business attire for traditional Kenyan clothing, standing tall and proud as the village elders led the proceedings. "In our tradition," the eldest man explained to Ethan, "marriage is not just between two people, but between families and communities. You are now part of our circle, responsible to many." Children sang traditional songs, while women ululated their approval. The simple feast that followed featured dishes Ethan had grown to love during his months in Kenya. Ugali, sukuma wiki, and roasted meats served on shared platters. During a quiet moment in the celebration, Ethan connected a video call to his parents in New York. His father's office appeared on the small screen, both parents seated stiffly before the camera. "Mother, father," Ethan said, his arm around Maya. "I'd like you to meet my wife, Maya." The silence that followed spoke volumes. His mother's face tightened in the practiced way that signaled extreme displeasure while maintaining social decorum. His father's expression was more direct, pure disapproval. "Ethan," his mother finally responded, her voice carefully controlled. "This is quite sudden. We expected you home next week to discuss the Asian expansion." "Plans have changed," Ethan replied, his grip on Maya tightening slightly. "I'll be extending my stay to help Maya apply for her visa. We'll come to New York together." "You'll regret this hasty decision, son," his father interjected, businesslike even in personal matters. "This isn't the appropriate time for personal indulgences." Ethan's jaw tightened, but before he could respond, Maya leaned forward. "It's an honor to meet you both," she said with genuine warmth. "I look forward to knowing Ethan's family." The gracious response in the face of their obvious disapproval only deepened Ethan's love for her. After awkward goodbyes, he switched off the phone, turning back to the celebration. "They'll understand when they meet you," he promised, though doubt had begun to creep into his voice. Maya touched his face gently. "Not everyone will see our love as we do, Ethan. Are you prepared for that?" Instead of answering, he led her back to their guests, to the music and laughter. Under the star-filled African sky, with Maya's hand in his, the disapproval from across the ocean seemed distant and inconsequential. "Whatever happens," he promised, as they danced beneath the stars, "I will never let you go." Words spoken with complete conviction, yet destined to be tested sooner than either could imagine. 3 blissful weeks into their marriage, as Ethan and Maya began preparing documentation for her visa application, the call that would alter their lives came at dawn. Ethan was awakened by the persistent ringing of his satellite phone, a sound that had become increasingly rare as he deliberately distanced himself from daily operations. Maya stirred beside him as he answered, immediately alert at the unusual hour. "Ethan Lewis," he answered, his voice still thick with sleep. "Ethan, it's Dad." The tense voice of Richard Lewis cut through the connection. "You need to get back to New York immediately. Stanley Cooper is trying to orchestrate a hostile takeover. The board is wavering." Fully awake now, Ethan sat up, his mind rapidly processing the implications. Stanley Cooper had been trying to acquire Lewis Enterprises for years, but had never managed to gain enough leverage. Until now, apparently. "How bad is it?" he asked, moving outside their small house to avoid disturbing Maya further. "Bad enough that I'm calling you at 4 a.m. your time. The company your grandfather built, that I've spent my life expanding, it could all be gone in a week if we don't mount an aggressive defense." The gravity in his father's voice was unmistakable. Richard Lewis was many things: calculating, ambitious, sometimes ruthless in business, but he was never one for exaggeration. When Ethan returned inside, Maya was sitting up in bed, her expression concerned. "What's wrong?" "The family company is in trouble," he explained, already beginning to gather his things. "I need to get back to New York." Maya nodded, immediately rising to help him pack. No complaints, no protests, just quiet support that made his impending departure even more difficult. "I'll be back as soon as I can," he promised as they prepared a hasty breakfast. 2 weeks, 3 at most. Just enough time to help stabilize things. Then I'll return to finish your visa application. As they ate, Maya reached across the table to take his hand. "I understand, Ethan. Your family needs you. You're my family now too," he reminded. "Harriet and I'll be here waiting," she assured him. "However long it takes." At the small regional airport, their goodbye was interrupted by another call from New York, this one from the company's legal team. As Maya watched, Ethan's expression grew increasingly troubled as he absorbed whatever information was being relayed. When he hung up, he pulled her close. "This is worse than I thought, but I promise you I'll fix it quickly and come back for you." Maya kissed him one last time before he boarded. "I believe in you," she said simply. Neither could have known that these would be their last moments together on Kenyan soil, or that forces beyond the business crisis were already in motion, forces determined to ensure that Ethan's promise would remain unfulfilled. As his plane disappeared into the clouds, Maya touched the bracelet on her wrist, a tangible reminder of vows that suddenly seemed vulnerable to circumstances beyond their control. The Lewis family's Manhattan office had always intimidated visitors with its deliberate opulence. Mahogany paneling, oil paintings of stern-faced predecessors, and floor-to-ceiling windows offering commanding views of the city skyline. For Davier, Ethan, who had grown up in this environment, it had once represented a birthright. Now, as he sat across from his father and the family's longtime attorney, Herbert Winters, it felt more like a tribunal. 3 days after his return to New York, the situation had clarified. Stanley Cooper had indeed engineered a masterful play for control, leveraging economic uncertainties and the extended absence of the company's heir apparent to sow doubt among key board members. The crisis was real, but as Ethan was discovering, so was the manipulation surrounding it. "The solution is straightforward," Richard Lewis stated, sliding a folder across the polished table. "Cooper's camp will withdraw their offer if we present a united front. That means you need to take over Asian operations immediately and demonstrate stability to the investors." Ethan opened the folder to find a 5-year plan already drafted, one that would station him primarily in Hong Kong with extensive travel throughout Southeast Asia. The schedule was relentless: leaving no possibility for maintaining a life in Kenya. "And Maya?" he asked, though he already suspected the answer. His father's expression hardened almost imperceptibly. "This situation requires your complete focus, Ethan. A long-distance marriage to a village teacher with no understanding of our world would be untenable." "She's my wife," Ethan stated firmly. "I made vows to her." Herbert Winters cleared his throat, the sound carrying decades of managing unpleasant family matters. From his briefcase, he withdrew another document. "Given the circumstances," the elderly attorney said, his voice professionally neutral, "we've prepared this annulment. It cites irreconcilable differences and geographical impracticality. There's a generous settlement included." Ethan stared at the document, momentarily speechless at the calculated efficiency with which his marriage was being dismantled. "You expect me to just sign this or to abandon her? We expect you to honor your responsibilities to the thousands of people who depend on this company," his father replied. "This infatuation happened at a vulnerable moment, Ethan. It's understandable, but it's not sustainable." A deeper realization dawned on Ethan then. "You never intended to welcome her, did you? Even before the Cooper situation." His father didn't answer directly. "The board meets tomorrow. Either you present as the committed future of this company, unencumbered by her complications, or we may lose everything your grandfather built." Ethan's hand rested on the document, his wedding bracelet visible beneath his shirt cuff. The weight of family legacy pressed against the promises he'd made under African skies, an impossible choice crystallizing before him. "I'll send her money," he said finally, his voice hollow. "Enough to ensure she's taken care of." "We'll handle that," his father assured him. "You won't need to have any further contact." As Ethan picked up the pen, he felt something break inside him, a fracture that wealth and success would never repair. On the other side of the world, Maya waited with growing concern. 2 weeks had passed since Ethan's departure, then 3, with only brief, increasingly vague phone calls offering assurances that he'd return soon. The satellite connection often broke, making meaningful conversation difficult, but something in his voice had changed, a hesitation that hadn't been there before. On the 23rd day, Maya stood at the arrivals gate of the small regional airport, a bouquet of local wildflowers in her hands. Ethan had finally confirmed his return flight, and she'd spent the morning preparing a special meal to celebrate their reunion. As passengers disembarked from the Nairobi connection, Maya's smile gradually faded. The final traveler exited. The ground crew began preparations for the next departure, and still no Ethan appeared. "Excuse me," she approached the gate attendant. "Was there a passenger named Ethan Lewis on this flight?" The woman checked her manifest. "No, ma'am, no one by that name." Confused and increasingly worried, Maya tried calling Ethan's satellite phone. No answer. She tried the New York office number he'd given her for emergencies, only to be politely but firmly rebuffed by a secretary who claimed Mr. Lewis was unavailable indefinitely. Days turned into weeks of silence. Maya called repeatedly, sent emails, even handwrote letters when technology failed to connect them. Each attempt at contact met the same result. Nothing. Then finally, an envelope arrived, not from Ethan, but from a law firm she didn't recognize. Inside, clinical language informed her that Mr. Ethan Lewis had filed for annulment of their marriage, citing irreconcilable differences and geographical impracticality. A settlement check was enclosed, alongside a non-disclosure agreement she was encouraged to sign. The village elders, seeing her distress, offered traditional wisdom. Sometimes the wind takes what was never meant to stay. But Maya wouldn't accept that Ethan had simply changed his mind. Something had happened in New York, some pressure or circumstance she couldn't understand from half a world away. With trembling hands, she wrote one final letter, pouring her heart onto the pages. "Ethan, I don't understand what has happened, but I know the man who stood before me under the acacia tree. That man made vows not with just his lips, but with his soul. Whatever is keeping you away, whatever has forced this decision, know that I still believe in that man. I will wait for an explanation that makes sense of this betrayal." She sent the letter to every address she had for him, the New York. office, his family home, even his personal email. Weeks later, they all returned marked "Return to Sender" or "Address Unknown." In the silence that followed, Maya made her own difficult decision. She sold what few valuables she owned, including the gold necklace that had belonged to her grandmother, but never the bracelet that remained on her wrist as both reminder and talisman. "I will remake myself," she vowed to the night sky, "and one day I will find the truth." The morning after Liam's emergency, Harbour Heights Community Clinic hummed with its usual quiet efficiency. Located in a renovated Victorian building at the edge of the city's working-class district, the clinic served those who often fell through. The cracks of the healthcare system, the elderly, the underinsured, immigrant families navigating a complex new world. Its waiting room walls were adorned with children's artwork and educational posters in multiple languages, creating an atmosphere of warmth despite limited resources. Maya had arrived early, throwing herself into routine as an antidote to the turmoil of the previous day's encounter. She moved methodically through patient files and medication orders, responding to colleagues' greetings with her usual gentle smile, though those who knew her well noticed the shadows beneath her eyes and the slight tension in her movements. Through the clinic's front windows, Maya caught a glimpse of Patricia speaking with Dr. Abernathy, the clinic's director. Their glances in her direction confirmed what she had suspected. Word had spread about yesterday's beach incident. In a small medical community, such connections were impossible to keep quiet for long. Patricia approached her at the medication cart. "Dr. Abernathy wants to ensure you're all right after yesterday's excitement. And..." She hesitated. "There's something else you should know." Before Patricia could continue, the front door opened, sending a shaft of morning sunlight across the worn linoleum floor. In its brightness stood Ethan, more formally dressed than he had been at the beach in a tailored charcoal suit that spoke of boardrooms rather than vacation days. His presence seemed to alter the very air of the modest clinic, drawing curious glances from staff and patients alike. Maya's hands stilled on the medication tray, her composed expression betraying nothing of the sudden acceleration of her pulse. Patricia squeezed her arm gently before stepping away, a silent gesture of support. Through the waiting area, Ethan moved with the confident bearing of someone accustomed to commanding attention, yet his eyes revealed uncertainty as they searched for and found Maya. He stopped a respectful distance from her, acutely aware of the public setting. "Maya," he said, his voice pitched low enough that only she could hear. "I know this is unexpected. I should have called first." "Yes, you should have," she replied evenly, resuming her task of organizing medications. "This is my workplace, Ethan. I understand. I wouldn't intrude if it weren't important." He glanced around at the curious onlookers. "Is there somewhere we could speak privately? Just for a few minutes?" Maya considered refusing, establishing boundaries that perhaps should have been set a decade earlier. But the professional in her recognized the disruption his continued presence would cause to the clinic's operation. With a slight nod, she gestured toward a small conference room used for staff meetings. "5 minutes," she said firmly. Inside, the modest room with its folding table and mismatched chairs, a stark contrast to the corporate boardrooms of his world, Ethan seemed suddenly less certain of himself. "Liam is doing well," he began, filling the awkward silence. "The doctors say he can go home today. They credit your quick action with preventing any lasting damage." "I'm glad to hear that," Maya replied sincerely. Despite everything that lay between her and Ethan, the boy was innocent. Children are remarkably resilient. Ethan nodded, then reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew an envelope. "The hospital said you refused any compensation for helping Liam. I wanted to..." "No." Maya's voice was soft but resolute as she raised a hand to stop him. "I didn't help your son for money, Ethan." "I know that," he responded quickly. "That's not what I..." He stopped, running a hand through his hair in a gesture so familiar it sent an unexpected pang through Maya's carefully guarded heart. "I'm handling this badly." "What did you expect?" she asked, allowing a rare glimpse of the hurt beneath her composed exterior. That we would chat like old acquaintances after 10 years of silence. I didn't expect to find you at all, Ethan admitted, his voice dropping. I thought you were still in Kenya. I tried to find you years ago after my father died. The letters— What letters? Maya interrupted, her professional mask slipping momentarily. Your letters. To me. My father intercepted them, returned them without my knowledge. His eyes held hers steadily. I found them in his study after he passed away. By then, when I tried to locate you in Kenya, you had already gone. The revelation hung in the air between them, a piece of the puzzle Maya had not anticipated. For years she had imagined Ethan reading her desperate words and choosing to ignore them. The thought that he might never have seen them had never occurred to her. Before she could process this information, a knock at the door interrupted them. Patricia poked her head in, her expression apologetic but firm. I'm sorry, Maya, but Mrs. Rodriguez is having difficulty with her grandson. She's asking specifically for you. Maya nodded, grateful for the interruption, yet unsettled by the conversation left unfinished. I need to get back to work, she told Ethan, moving toward the door. Maya, please. Ethan's voice stopped her. I know I have no right to ask anything of you, but would you meet me properly away from here? There's so much I need to explain, and he hesitated. Liam wants to thank you himself. At the mention of the boy, Maya's resistance softened slightly. I don't think that's a good idea, Ethan. Just one meeting, he persisted. A public place of your choosing. After that, if you never want to see me again, I'll respect your decision. Maya paused at the threshold, torn between self-preservation and the undeniable pull of questions that had haunted her for a decade. Beyond the door, the sounds of the clinic, her real life, the one she had built from the ashes of his abandonment, continued without pause. I'll think about it, she finally said, not turning back to see the hope that briefly illuminated his face. As she rejoined the familiar rhythm of her workday, Maya could feel the carefully constructed walls of her new life beginning to tremble, foundations shifting beneath the weight of uncovered truths and questions too long unanswered. 2 days later, Maya sat at a corner table in Harborview Cafe, a small establishment overlooking the marina where local fishermen docked their boats each evening. She had chosen this location carefully, public enough to feel safe, yet quiet, enough for a private conversation, and importantly not associated with memories of either her life with Ethan or her life after him. She arrived early, ordering herbal tea and watching sailboats rock gently in their moorings. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the weathered dock planks, creating a contemplative atmosphere that matched her mood. After much internal debate, she had finally responded to the message Ethan had left at the clinic, agreeing to this one meeting. When the bell above the cafe door chimed, Maya looked up to see Ethan enter alone, no Liam, though he had mentioned the boy would come. He spotted her immediately, his stride faltering briefly before he approached her table. Thank you for agreeing to meet, he said, taking the seat across from her, his usual confidence tempered by evident nervousness. Where's Liam? Maya asked, noting his solitary arrival. With his grandfather at the hotel, Ethan explained. I thought perhaps we should talk first, just the two of us. Maya nodded, appreciating his consideration, despite her disappointment at not seeing. The boy, how is he doing? Better every day. The doctors say his heart condition is manageable with proper medication and monitoring. Ethan fidgeted with his coffee cup after ordering. He keeps asking about you. His guardian angel, he calls. You... A small smile touched Maya's lips before she could suppress it. He seems like a wonderful child. He is, Ethan agreed, warmth entering his voice. He's the one good thing to come from. He trailed off, unsure how to reference his brief marriage after Maya. An uncomfortable silence settled between them, 10 years of unspoken words and unanswered questions, creating an almost tangible barrier. Finally, Maya broke it with the most pressing question. Why didn't you try to find me, Ethan? Her voice remained steady, though it cost her considerable effort. Why did you simply disappear? Ethan met her gaze directly. I was told you had received the settlement and signed the papers, that you understood the situation and had moved on. His hands clenched around his cup. I later discovered that was a lie, orchestrated by my father and our family attorneys. I never received any money, Maya said quietly. Only papers I refused to sign. Ethan's expression hardened. My father claimed everything had been handled amicably. By the time I learned otherwise, years had passed, and when I tried to find you in Kenya, you had already gone. I waited for you, Maya said, the composure in her voice belied by the intensity in her eyes. For weeks after you left, I went to the airport for every incoming flight. I called your numbers until they blocked my calls. I wrote letters until they came back marked return to sender. I never saw those letters until after my father died, Ethan explained, anguish evident in his face. He kept them locked away in his study safe. When I found them, I hired investigators to locate you in Kenya, but the village said you had left years before. No one knew where you had gone. Maya absorbed this information, recalibrating. A decade of assumptions. Why did you agree to end our marriage? What could have been worth breaking the promises we made? Ethan's shoulders sagged under the weight of her question. They threatened to dismantle the company, to destroy everything my grandfather had built, affecting thousands of employees' livelihoods. My father presented it as my responsibility to everyone who depended on Lewis Enterprises. He paused, his voice dropping. But the truth, Maya, the truth I've had to live with is that I wasn't strong enough. I let them convince me there was no other choice. There's always a choice, Ethan, Maya said softly, echoing words she had once spoken to him under African skies. I know that now, he admitted. By the time I understood what I'd truly lost, you were gone. Maya looked down at her bracelet, the tangible reminder of promises made and broken. I came to America 4 years after you left. I used my teaching credentials to apply for a special visa program, then completed my nursing certification in Boston. 4 years, Ethan repeated, doing the mental calculation. You've been in the country for 6 years. Yes. Maya met his gaze steadily. And in this town for 5. The implication hung between them. She had been living mere miles from him for years, their paths somehow never crossing until Liam's crisis had forced fate's hand. Did you know I was here? Ethan asked quietly. That Liam and I lived so close. Man, I learned about you from a patient, Liam's mother actually, though she never knew who I was. Maya's revelation clearly startled him. She came to the clinic during their divorce proceedings. She mentioned her ex-husband's name and I realized the coincidence. And you never reached out. The question held no accusation, only wonder. What would have been the point? Maya asked simply. You had made your choice, built a new life. I had finally built mine as well. Ethan's expression reflected painful understanding. I want you to know that I never stopped. Maya raised her hand, stopping him. Please don't say you never stopped loving me, Ethan. Love isn't something you put on a shelf and keep pristine while you live another life. Love is daily choices, presence, honesty. Her words struck him with the force of truth too long denied. For a moment, neither spoke. The sounds of the cafe, gentle conversation, clinking cups, the distant call of seagulls, filling the space between them. You're right, Ethan finally said. I don't have the right to claim that, but I never stopped regretting what I did, and I never stopped wondering what might have been. Maya studied his face, the face she had once known better than her own, now marked by the passing years and accumulated regrets. Why are you telling me this now, Ethan? What do you want from me? I don't know, he admitted, with rare vulnerability. When I saw you on that beach, saving my son's life, it had felt like the universe giving me a chance I don't deserve, to at least explain, to maybe find some kind of forgiveness, if not for me, then for Liam's sake. Maya's carefully constructed emotional defenses wavered at the mention of the boy. Liam isn't responsible for what happened between us and he never needs my forgiveness. I know, Ethan agreed quietly, but he wants to know you, Maya, and I think maybe knowing you would be good for him. The implication of his words, that this wouldn't be a single meeting but potentially the beginning of some new connection, left Maya speechless. As she struggled to formulate a response, Her phone buzzed with a message from the clinic, an urgent call from one of her elderly patients. "I have to go," she said, gathering her things. "A patient needs me." Ethan nodded, understanding. In his eyes, "Can I call you again? Or should I not?" At the door, Maya turned back, her professional composure unable to completely mask the turbulence beneath. "I don't know yet," she answered honestly. "I need time to think." As she walked away, the weight of the past and the uncertain shape of the future accompanied her with each step, a journey no longer simply forward, but suddenly expanding in directions she had long ago forced herself to forget. The following evening, against her better judgment, Maya found herself walking along the beachfront promenade, where upscale restaurants catered to tourists and wealthy locals alike. Ethan had suggested dinner at one such establishment, but Maya had countered with a simpler alternative, a walk along the shore where Liam's crisis had brought them face to face after a decade apart. She spotted them waiting near the public access point, Ethan casually dressed in contrast to his business attire at the clinic, and beside him a small figure peering eagerly in her direction. Liam's resemblance to his father was striking, yet there was an openness to his expression that reminded Maya of Ethan before the corporate world had hardened him. As she approached, Liam's eyes widened with recognition. "It's you, the angel, lady who saved me," he exclaimed with childish directness. Despite herself, Maya smiled. "Hello, Liam, I'm Maya. And I'm not an angel. Just a nurse who happened to be nearby." "Dad says you made my heart better when it stopped working, right?" The boy persisted, undeterred by her modesty. "Your heart just needed a little help remembering how to beat properly," Maya explained gently. "It's very strong now, I can tell." Liam beamed at this assessment, then thrust forward a slightly crumpled envelope. "I made you a thank you card. Dad helped with spelling the hard words." The unexpected gift touched Maya deeply. She opened the envelope to find a hand-drawn picture of a woman with wings and a nurse's cap standing over a small boy. The wobbly handwriting inside read, "Thank you for saving me. You are the nicest angel I ever met. Love, Liam." "It's beautiful," Maya said sincerely, kneeling to meet the boy at eye level. "Thank you, Liam." Ethan watched this interaction with visible emotion, something Maya caught from the corner of her eye as she rose. "Would you like to walk along?" "The beach," Ethan suggested. "There's a playground just down the way." Liam ran ahead of them toward the playground, his energy seemingly fully restored after his medical ordeal. Maya and Ethan followed at a distance that allowed them to keep him in sight while maintaining a private conversation. "He's remarkable," Maya observed. "His resilience, his openness. Children can teach us so much about recovery." "He gets that from his mother," Ethan admitted quietly. "She always found the bright side of situations." Maya hesitated before asking, "What happened between you two, if you don't mind my asking?" Ethan's gaze remained on Liam as he navigated the jungle gym. "After my father died, I started questioning everything, the choices I'd made, the life I was living. I told Amanda about you, about Kenya, about how my family had pressured me into ending our marriage." His expression tightened with remembered pain. "She said she couldn't live with someone who was still in love with a ghost." Maya absorbed this revelation silently, watching Liam climb to the top of a slide, his arms raised triumphantly. "When my father passed away," Ethan continued, "I found your letters. Reading them." He faltered, struggling to maintain composure. "Reading them destroyed the narrative I'd been told, that you had accepted the settlement, moved on easily. Instead, I read your confusion, your pain, your plea for answers that never came." Maya felt old wounds reopening, memories she had carefully packed away surging forward. "Your father intercepted all of them, and my attempts to contact you," Ethan confirmed grimly. "When I confronted my mother after finding the letters, she justified it as protecting the family legacy. The company needed you focused, not distracted by some foreign entanglement," she said. "An entanglement," Maya repeated softly, the word bitter on her tongue. "Is that what our marriage was to them?" To them, yes, never to me. Ethan's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. I should have fought harder, Maya. I should have seen through their manipulation. They reached a bench overlooking both the playground and the ocean beyond. Sitting a careful distance apart, they watched Liam make friends with another child, the two of them engrossed in building a sand castle. Did you know, Maya said after a moment, her eyes fixed on the horizon, that I never legally divorced you? After receiving those papers, I couldn't bring myself to sign them. It felt like erasing something that had been real, something sacred. Ethan turned to her, stunned. You mean technically we're still married? In a legal sense, perhaps. Though I think we both know that marriages exist beyond paperwork. Her voice carried no accusation, only a quiet acknowledgement of truth. Ethan studied her profile, seeing both the young woman he had loved in Kenya and the stronger, more self-possessed woman she had become. I've learned that Liam has a heart, condition similar to what my grandfather had. It's hereditary but manageable with proper care. Maya nodded, making the connection. That's why you recognized the symptoms so quickly on the beach. Yes, but what I never expected was that the person who would save him would be you. Ethan's voice thickened with emotion. Do you know what that felt like, Maya? To watch you save my son's life when I had once caused you so much pain. The raw vulnerability in his question breached Maya's carefully maintained professional distance. I would have done the same for any child, Ethan. I know, he said simply. That's who you've always been. Their conversation paused as Liam ran over, proudly showing Maya a seashell he had found before racing back to his new friend. He could have been our child, Ethan said suddenly, the words escaping before he could censure them. In another life where I made better choices. The statement hung between them, heavy with implications of paths not taken, futures forfeited. Maya felt tears threatening for the first time since their reunion and blinked them back resolutely. Yes, she acknowledged, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions beneath. But he is who he is, Ethan. A wonderful boy who deserves all our care, not our regrets about what might have been. As they watched Liam playing in the fading daylight, both were acutely aware of the parallel lives that had split from a single point 10 years before, and the fragile new connection that his innocent presence had unexpectedly created between them. Scene 24, climactic moment, 3,125 characters. The following Sunday afternoon found Ethan alone in his hotel suite, pacing the length of the room, while Liam enjoyed a day with his grandfather, who had flown in from New York ostensibly to check on his grandson's health, but more likely to assess the unexpected delay in Ethan's return. The resort development waited. Board members were growing impatient. Yet Ethan found himself inventing reasons to extend their stay in the coastal town. He paused by the window, gazing out at the ocean that seemed to hold so many pivotal moments. In his life, his marriage proposal to Maya on a Kenyan beach, Liam's medical emergency on this shore, and now this limbo of possibilities where past and present converged without clear resolution. A soft knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Opening it, he found Maya standing in the hallway, her expression unreadable. "Maya," he said, surprised by her unexpected visit. "Please come in." She entered with visible hesitation, declining his offer to sit. "I can't stay long. I'm on my break from the clinic." "Of course." Ethan maintained a respectful distance, sensing her discomfort. "Is everything all right?" "I've been thinking about our conversations," she began carefully. "About the past, about what happened between us." Ethan nodded, hope and apprehension mingling in his expression. "I have too. Constantly. I spoke with a lawyer yesterday," Maya continued, her voice steady. "About our technical marital status. Whatever Ethan had expected, it wasn't this." "Oh," was all he managed, unsure where she was heading. "It seems that after 10 years of separation with no contact or financial support, I have grounds for an uncontested dissolution." She delivered this information with clinical detachment, as though discussing a medical procedure, rather than the final severing of their bond. Ethan felt a cold weight settle in his chest. "I see. Is that what you want?" "I thought." "It was," Maya admitted, finally meeting his gaze directly. I thought it would bring closure, allow us both to move forward properly. And now? Ethan asked, hardly daring to breathe. Maya moved to the window, looking out at the same ocean Ethan had been contemplating. Now I'm not sure what I want. Learning that you never saw my letters, that you tried to find me later. It changes. The narrative I've lived with for 10 years. Ethan took a tentative step toward her. Maya, please let me finish, she interrupted gently. This isn't easy for me. He nodded, falling silent. When I saw you on the beach with Liam, my first instinct was to save him and then walk away from you both, to protect the life I've built. Her fingers absently traced the pattern of her bracelet. But Liam, he's innocent in all this. And seeing how you are with him, how much you've grown as a person through fatherhood. I've tried to be the father he deserves, Ethan said quietly. To learn from my mistakes. Maya turned to face him. I believe that. I can see it in how he trusts you, how secure he feels in your love. The unspoken comparison hung between them, the contrast between Ethan's commitment to his son and his failure to fight for their marriage a decade earlier. Maya, Ethan said, his voice dropping as he took another step closer. I know I have. No right to ask anything of you. The choices I made were made under extreme pressure, she finished for him. I understand that now, even if I can't fully forgive it yet. Hope flickered in Ethan's eyes. Yet, forgiveness is a process, Ethan, not a moment. Maya's voice softened slightly. I'm still in that process. Suddenly overcome by emotion, Ethan dropped to one knee before her, a gesture reminiscent of both proposal and supplication. I will do anything to make amends, he said, his voice raw with sincerity. Anything to earn a place in your life again, even if only as Liam's father, even if you can never see me as more than that. Maya looked down at this powerful man brought low by regret and felt the last of her carefully constructed walls beginning to crumble. 10 years of believing he had willingly abandoned her, 10 years of rebuilding her life from that pain, all now called into question by revelations of manipulation and missed connections. I forgive you, she said simply, the words falling like gentle rain on parched earth. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. I choose to set us both free. With gentle movements, she placed her hand over Ethan's heart, feeling its rapid beat beneath her palm. I forgive you, Ethan, but I cannot return to the past. That Maya and that Ethan no longer exist. Tears formed in Ethan's eyes, perhaps the first he had shed since his father's manipulation had torn them apart. I know, he whispered. I don't expect that. I just want a chance to know who you are now. For Liam to know you. For us to find some way forward that honors what we once meant to each other. Maya's own eyes glistened with unshed tears as she lifted her hand from his chest. I don't know if that's possible, but for Liam's sake, I'm willing to try. Something shifted between them in that moment, not reconciliation exactly, but the first tentative step toward a new understanding. Neither the passionate young lovers of Kenya, nor complete strangers, but something yet undefined with boundaries still to be discovered. Ethan rose slowly, maintaining the respectful distance she seemed to need. Thank you, he said simply, as Maya prepared to leave to return to her duties at the clinic. She paused at the door. Ethan, there's something else you should know. He waited, sensing the importance of whatever she was about to share. I knew Liam before that day on the beach, she admitted. He was my patient at the clinic 6 months ago. I recognized him immediately when I saw him collapse. A sad smile touched her lips. He has your eyes. With those parting words, she slipped away, leaving Ethan to absorb this final revelation. That Maya had known of his son's existence, had even cared for him professionally, yet had chosen to remain invisible in their lives until fate had forced her hand. As the door closed behind her, Ethan felt something he hadn't experienced in years, not the sharp pain of loss that had become his constant companion, but the tender ache of possibility, fragile and uncertain, but real nonetheless. The following Sunday afternoon found Ethan alone in his hotel suite, pacing the length of the room while Liam enjoyed a day with his grandfather, who had flown in from New York ostensibly to check on his grandson's health, but more likely to assess the unexpected delay in Ethan's return. The resort development waited. Board members were growing impatient, yet Ethan found himself inventing reasons to extend their stay in the coastal town. He paused by the window, gazing out at the ocean that seemed to hold so many pivotal moments. In his life, his marriage proposal to Maya on a Kenyan beach, Liam's medical emergency on this shore, and now this limbo of possibilities where past and present converged without clear resolution. A soft knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Opening it, he found Maya standing in the hallway, her expression unreadable. "Maya," he said, surprised by her unexpected visit. "Please come in." She entered with visible hesitation, declining his offer to sit. "I can't stay long. I'm on my break from the clinic." "Of course." Ethan maintained a respectful distance, sensing her discomfort. "Is everything all right?" "I've been thinking about our conversations," she began carefully. "About the past, about what happened between us." Ethan nodded, hope and apprehension mingling in his expression. "I have too. Constantly. I spoke with a lawyer yesterday." Maya continued, her voice steady. "About our technical marital status. Whatever Ethan had expected, it wasn't this." "Oh," was all he managed, unsure where she was heading. "It seems that after 10 years of separation, with no contact or financial support, I have grounds for an uncontested dissolution." She delivered this information with clinical detachment, as though discussing a medical procedure rather than the final severing of their bond. Ethan felt a cold weight settle in his chest. "I see. Is that what you want?" I thought. "It was," Maya admitted, finally meeting his gaze directly. "I thought it would bring closure, allow us both to move forward properly. And now?" Ethan asked, hardly daring to breathe. Maya moved to the window, looking out at the same ocean Ethan had been contemplating. "Now I'm not sure what I want. Learning that you never saw my letters, that you tried to find me later, it changes the narrative I've lived with for 10 years. Ethan took a tentative step toward her. "Maya, Please let me finish," she interrupted gently. "This isn't easy for me." He nodded, falling silent. "When I saw you on the beach with Liam, my first instinct was to save him and then walk away from you both. To protect the life I've built." Her fingers absently traced the pattern of her bracelet. "But Liam, he's innocent in all this. And seeing how you are with him, how much you've grown as a person through fatherhood. I've tried to be the father he deserves," Ethan said quietly. "To learn from my mistakes." Maya turned to face him. "I believe that. I can see it in how he trusts you, how secure he feels in your love." The unspoken comparison hung between them, the contrast between Ethan's commitment to his son and his failure to fight for their marriage a decade earlier. "Maya," Ethan said, his voice dropping as he took another step closer. "I know I have no right to ask anything of you. The choices I made were made under extreme pressure," she finished for him. "I understand that now, even if I can't fully forgive it yet." Hope flickered in Ethan's eyes. "Yet. Forgiveness is a process, Ethan, not a moment." Maya's voice softened slightly. "I'm still in that process." Suddenly overcome by emotion, Ethan dropped to one knee before her, a gesture reminiscent of both proposal and supplication. "I will do anything to make amends," he said, his voice raw with sincerity. "Anything to earn a place in your life again, even if only as Liam's father, even if you can never see me as more than that." Maya looked down at this powerful man brought low by regret and felt the last of her carefully constructed walls beginning to crumble. 10 years of believing he had willingly abandoned her, 10 years of rebuilding her life from that pain. All now called into question by revelations of manipulation and missed connections. "I forgive you," she said simply, the words falling like gentle rain on parched earth. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. I choose to set us both free." With gentle movements, she placed her hand over Ethan's heart, feeling its rapid beat beneath her palm. "I forgive you, Ethan, but I cannot return to the past. That Maya and that Ethan no longer exist." Tears formed in Ethan's eyes, perhaps the first he had shed since his father's manipulation had torn them apart. "I know," he whispered. "I don't expect that. I just want a chance to know who you are now. For Liam to know you. For us to find some way forward that honors what we once meant to each other." Maya's own eyes glistened with unshed tears as she lifted her hand from his chest. "I don't know if that's possible, but for Liam's sake, I'm willing to try." Something shifted between them in that moment, not reconciliation exactly, but the first tentative step toward a new understanding. Neither the passionate young lovers of Kenya nor complete strangers, but something yet undefined with boundaries still to be discovered. Ethan rose slowly, maintaining the respectful distance she seemed to need. "Thank you," he said simply. Maya prepared to leave to return to her duties at the clinic. She paused at the door. "Ethan, there's something else you should know." He waited, sensing the importance of whatever she was about to share. "I knew Liam before that day on Saud." "The beach," she admitted. "He was my patient at the clinic 6 months ago. I recognized him immediately when I saw him collapse." A sad smile touched her lips. "He has your eyes." With those parting words, she slipped away, leaving Ethan to absorb this final revelation. That Maya had known of his son's existence, had even cared for him professionally, yet had chosen to remain invisible in their lives until fate had forced her hand. As the door closed behind her, Ethan felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Not the sharp pain of loss that had become his constant companion, but the tender ache of possibility, fragile and uncertain, but real nonetheless. After Maya's departure, Ethan stood motionless in the hotel suite, her words echoing in his mind. "I forgive you. I choose to set us both free." A liberation that acknowledged the past while creating space for something new to emerge. He moved to the bathroom, splashing cold water on his face before staring at his reflection. The man looking back was neither the ambitious young businessman who had fallen in love in Kenya, nor the ruthless corporate leader he had become in the decade since. He saw someone in transition, confronting the cost of past choices while glimpsing the possibility of redemption. From his suitcase, Ethan retrieved the wooden box containing Maya's returned letters. The last one, dated nearly a year after his departure, contained words that pierced him anew. "I have waited by silent phones and empty mailboxes long enough. I will carry the memory of what we shared, but I can no longer carry the hope of your return. If you ever find your way back to yourself, Ethan, know that I forgave you even before you asked." She had already forgiven him, years before today's encounter. The realization both humbled and freed him. With sudden resolve, Ethan picked up his phone and dialed his mother. "Mother, so it's Ethan. We need to talk about what you and Father did 10 years ago." Eleanor Lewis's voice carried its familiar, aristocratic reserve. "I assume this is about that Kenyan woman." "Her name is Maya," Ethan corrected firmly. "And yes, I've found her, or rather, she found me when she saved Liam's life. Your father did what he thought necessary to protect the family legacy." "I know the justifications," Ethan interrupted. "I believed them once, but intercepting her letters, returning them without my knowledge, you both robbed me of the chance to make my own informed choice." "We did what parents do," Eleanor insisted. "We protected you from a mistake." "No," Ethan countered quietly. "You protected yourselves from a future you couldn't control, and I won't pass that legacy on to my son." As he ended the call, Ethan felt an unexpected lightness. For the first time since reading Maya's letters, he felt not just regret for what had been lost, but something he had not permitted himself in years, hope. Maya drove home from the hotel in a state of quiet turmoil, her hands trembling slightly on the steering wheel. She had not planned to forgive Ethan today, had not, in fact, planned to see him at all. Yet something had pulled her to his door, some need for resolution that had been building since their encounters began. The setting sun cast her apartment in golden light as she entered. Everything looked the same. Her books, her plants, the photographs from her travels after leaving Kenya, yet something fundamental had shifted. The past was no longer a door firmly closed, but a window unexpectedly opened, letting in fresh air that disturbed the careful arrangement of her present life. Maya moved to her closet and opened the bottom drawer where the wooden box of memories rested. But instead of taking it out as she had the night after meeting Ethan on the beach, she simply closed the drawer again. Today marked a boundary between holding on and letting go, not forgetting, but ceasing to be defined by what had happened. She changed from her clinic scrubs into comfortable clothes, then sat at her small writing desk by the window. Taking a fresh sheet of paper, she began to write, not a letter to Ethan this time, but to herself. Today I spoke words I never thought. I would say I forgive you. Not because the past has changed, but because I have... The girl who waited at airports would not recognize the woman I've become through that very pain. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's acknowledging that while the past shaped me, it no longer controls me. Ethan is not the villain I've painted him to be all these years, nor is he the hero I once believed. He is simply human, flawed, capable of both weakness and growth. As she finished writing, her phone buzzed with a message from Sophia. Heard Ethan Lewis was asking about you again. You okay? Maya smiled faintly, typing back, I'm okay. Better than okay. I've finally let go of something heavy I've been carrying for years. Does this mean you've decided about him? Maya looked out at the darkening sky. No, she wrote back. It means I've decided about me. The Lewis family estate outside New York had always represented everything Ethan had been raised to value: tradition, wealth, power. As his rental car crunched up the gravel driveway 3 days after his conversation with Maya, Ethan felt like a visitor rather than the heir to this dynasty. He had left Liam in the coastal town under Patricia's occasional supervision while he attended to this necessary confrontation. Eleanor Lewis waited in the grand living room, elegant as always in her tailored outfit, a glass of sherry in hand. Ethan, she greeted him with the customary cheek kiss. I didn't expect to see you so soon after our conversation. Some things need to be said in person, he replied, declining her offer of a drink. You've changed since I saw you last month. Something's different. Everything's different, Ethan acknowledged. Finding Maya again has forced me to confront what happened 10 years ago. Not just father's actions or yours, but my own. I wish you wouldn't dwell on ancient history, Eleanor sighed. What's done is done, is it? Ethan challenged gently. Because what we did continues to affect 3 lives, mine, Maya's, and most importantly, Liam's. We did what? We thought best for the company, Eleanor began, but Ethan raised a hand. I know, and I participated in that decision, which makes me equally responsible. He leaned forward. But I've realized something. The company isn't worth the cost we paid, the cost I paid in my integrity, the cost Maya paid in her trust, and the cost Liam continues to pay by having a father who learned to value success over human connection. Eleanor set down her glass, her fingers trembling slightly. You sound like your grandfather, she said unexpectedly. Before the business consumed him, he spoke of costs too high to bear. This glimpse of family history surprised Ethan. Tell me about him, not the businessman, but the man. He was gentler once, before the pressure of expansion changed him. A faraway look entered her eyes. Your father admired his business acumen, but missed the earlier version of him. Perhaps in trying to please him, Richard became something harder than intended. And perhaps in trying to please father, I did the same. Eleanor met his gaze, recognition dawning. We all did what we thought necessary. I know, Ethan acknowledged, but necessity doesn't erase consequences. Maya lost 10 years of what might have been. I lost my chance to be the man I could have become. And Liam... He paused. Liam nearly lost his life on that beach. If Maya hadn't been there... But she was, Eleanor interjected. Yes, she was there despite everything. That's why I can't simply return to business as usual. That resort development, the board's expectations, they need to wait. What? Are you saying I'm taking a leave of absence? Ethan stated firmly. Liam needs stability, and I need to rediscover what matters beyond the next acquisition or development deal. And this woman, Maya, what role will she play? Ethan smiled faintly. That's entirely up to her. I've caused enough upheaval. In her life, whatever comes next has to be her choice, made freely without pressure. As his mother processed this declaration of independence from the family's traditional priorities, Ethan felt a certainty that had eluded him for years. I'm not abandoning my responsibilities, he assured her. I'm just redefining what they are. Eleanor looked at her son with new eyes, seeing not just the heir to the family enterprise, but a man making peace with his past. Your father would have struggled to understand this, she said finally, but I think your grandfather might have approved. The staff lounge at Harbour Heights Clinic hummed with the particular energy of healthcare workers on break. Maya sat with her usual lunch group, Patricia, Sophia, and Dr. Abernathy, all of whom had been carefully avoiding the subject of Ethan. Lewis, since his appearance at the clinic, their restraint finally broke when Sophia casually mentioned seeing Ethan and Liam at the farmer's market over the weekend. He's still in town? Dr. Abernathy asked, raising an eyebrow. I thought these resort developer types flew in and out quickly. The question hung in the air, clearly directed at Maya, despite not being addressed to her. He's extended his stay, she acknowledged simply. Patricia studied Maya's face carefully. The boy seems quite taken with you. Very sweet how he calls you his angel. Maya smiled despite herself. Liam is special. None of what happened between his father and me is his fault. Speaking of what happened, Sophia ventured, you never really told us the full story. Maya decided that hiding behind half-truths no longer served any purpose. We met when he came to my village to build a school, she began. We married after knowing each other only a few months, but it felt inevitable somehow, like recognizing something you've always known. Her colleagues listened as Maya explained the business crisis, the promises to return, and then the devastating silence. For years I believed he had simply changed his mind about me. It wasn't until recently that I learned his father had intercepted my letters, hidden them from him. That's medieval, Dr. Abernathy commented, appalled. It was business, Maya corrected without bitterness. The family empire needed its heir focused. I was a complication. And now, Patricia asked gently, what happens now? Now we acknowledge what was lost, Maya said, and we try to find a way forward that honors the past without being trapped by it. Sophia leaned forward, her expression serious. When my ex-husband came back after 15 years, I shut that door firmly. What I didn't tell you was that sometimes I wonder what might have happened if I'd found the courage to open that door just a crack, not to let him back in completely, but to see if there was something worth salvaging. Are you saying I should give Ethan another chance? I'm saying courage takes many forms, Sophia replied. Sometimes it's walking away. Sometimes it's being willing to rewrite a story you thought was finished. Sunset painted the hotel room in warm amber as Ethan helped Liam pack his small suitcase. Their extended stay had transformed the suite into a temporary home. Liam's books scattered across the coffee table, his drawings for Maya taped to the refrigerator door. Oh, do we really have to go home tomorrow? Liam asked, reluctantly folding his t-shirt. We've already stayed much longer than planned, Ethan reminded him. You've got school starting in 2 weeks, and I need to speak with my team about some changes. But what about Maya? Liam persisted. If we go back to New York, we won't see her anymore. Ethan sat on the edge of the bed, inviting his son to join him. That's something I wanted to talk to you about. I've been thinking about making some changes to our lives. What kind of changes? Big ones, Ethan admitted. I'm considering taking a break from running so many projects, spending more time with you, maybe even looking at schools here instead of New York. Liam's eyes widened. We'd live here, near the beach, near Maya, possibly, but I need you to understand something important about Maya and me, that she used to be your wife. Liam asked matter-of-factly. Ethan blinked in surprise. How did you know that? I heard Grandma talking to you on the phone, and you both have the same bracelet, and you look at her the way Prince Charming looks at Cinderella. A surprised laugh escaped Ethan. Well, yes, Maya and I were married a long time ago before I met your mom. What happened? I made a mistake, he said finally. I had to choose between my family's business and staying with Maya. I chose wrong. Is that why she seems sad sometimes when she looks at you? Probably, Ethan acknowledged. Can you fix it? Liam asked. Some mistakes can't be completely fixed, buddy. They leave marks that change people. But Maya and I are trying to find a new way forward, as friends at least. But you still love her, Liam stated with certainty. It's complicated, Liam. Grown-ups always say that, Liam observed with mild exasperation. But Dad, if you love someone, shouldn't you be brave enough to tell them? From the mouth of babes, Ethan thought, humbled by his son's uncomplicated wisdom. When did you get so smart about these things? TV shows and books, and listening when grown-ups think I'm not paying attention. The morning dew still clung to the clinic's windows when Maya arrived for her early shift. The building was quiet, with only the overnight nurse completing charts before heading home and the receptionist setting up for the day. Maya enjoyed these peaceful moments before the bustle of patients and colleagues filled the halls, time to review cases, prepare medications, and center herself for the day ahead. At the nurse's station, an envelope with her name caught her attention. The handwriting was unfamiliar, but the hotel logo in the corner immediately identified its source. With a slight tremor in her fingers that surprised her, Maya opened it to find a formal letter on hotel stationery. Dear Maya, Liam and I will be returning to New York tomorrow morning. Before we go, I wanted to thank you, not just for saving his life on the beach that day, but for the grace with which you've handled our unexpected reconnection. I've spent 10 years building a life designed to distract me from what I lost when I left Kenya. Success, acquisitions, expansions, all attempts to fill a space that couldn't be filled that way. Finding you again has forced me to confront not just the past, but the present I've created and the future I want for Liam and myself. After much consideration, I've decided to take an extended leave from active management of Lewis Enterprises. The board isn't pleased, but for once their approval isn't my priority. I've spoken with Liam's doctors about continuing his cardiac care, and we've discussed schools in the coastal area that might suit him. I'm not telling you this with any expectation. You've rebuilt your life beautifully without me, and I have no right to disrupt it further. But I wanted you to know that the lessons of our past haven't been wasted, that the man you believed in under that acacia tree is finally finding his way back to himself. However belatedly, if you're willing, Liam would like to say goodbye before we leave. We could meet at the beachfront playground around noon. If we don't see you, please know that your forgiveness has meant more than I can adequately express. With deepest gratitude, Ethan P.C. The bracelet you gave me in Kenya has never left my wrist. Even when I didn't deserve to wear it, it reminded me of the person I once promised to be. Maya read the letter twice, absorbing its implications. Ethan was considering relocating. To the area, not for her, he had been careful to specify, but as part of a larger re-evaluation of his priorities. The thought of potentially encountering him and Liam regularly in this small coastal community both unsettled and intrigued her. Morning mail already? Patricia's voice interrupted her thoughts as the older nurse arrived for her shift. Maya folded the letter carefully. Just a note, she replied, tucking it into her pocket. Patricia studied her with knowing eyes. From our handsome CEO, I'm guessing. Word around the hospital is that he's been making inquiries about relocating his son's cardiac care to Memorial. News traveled quickly in their medical community. Maya shouldn't have been surprised, yet hearing confirmation of Ethan's plans from another source made them suddenly more real. He mentioned something about that, Maya acknowledged. They're heading back to New York today, but not for good from what I hear. Patricia hung her coat in the small staff closet. Dr. Winters says Mr. Lewis requested complete records for transfer and asked specifically about long-term pediatric cardiac care options. Maya busied herself with checking the medication cart. trying to sort through her complicated emotions. It's good that he's prioritizing Liam's healthcare. Maya. Patricia's gentle but firm tone made her look up. May I speak freely, as someone who's lived long enough to have some perspective? At Maya's nod, the older nurse continued. I've watched you these past 5 years. You're an exceptional nurse, compassionate, dedicated, thorough, but I've also seen the careful boundaries you maintain, the way you keep everyone at a certain distance. Maya started to object, but Patricia raised a hand. It's not a criticism, dear. It's an observation from someone who recognizes the pattern. After my Gerald died, I built similar walls, protection against further loss. Ethan and I aren't— I know, Patricia interrupted gently. And perhaps you never will be again. But life rarely offers us chances to rewrite our most painful chapters. When it does, there's wisdom in at least considering the opportunity. Before Maya could respond, the clinic door opened as the first patients arrived, ending their private conversation. Throughout the morning, as she moved efficiently through her duties, Maya found her thoughts returning to Ethan's letter and Patricia's words. At 11:30, she checked her watch, calculating the time needed to reach the beachfront playground by noon. The decision before her wasn't just about saying goodbye to Liam, or even about Ethan's potential return to the area. It was about whether she was willing to risk the careful equilibrium she had established, whether the walls that had protected her for so long were still necessary, or if they had become a prison of their own making. As she signed out for her lunch break, Maya found herself at another crossroads, smaller than the one she had faced when leaving Kenya, perhaps, but no, less significant in determining the shape of her future. The seaside cafe where Ethan and Liam waited overlooked the very beach where destiny had orchestrated their reunion. Small wooden tables dotted the outdoor patio, each adorned with a single wildflower in a recycled glass bottle. The afternoon, sun bathed everything in a gentle golden light, a stark contrast to the crisis that had brought them together just days before. Liam fidgeted with his napkin, folding it into increasingly complex shapes as he periodically scanned the boardwalk. For Maya's arrival, "Do you think she'll come, Dad?" he asked for the third time, his voice betraying his worry. "I don't know, buddy," Ethan answered honestly. "She has her own life, her own choices to make. All we can do is hope." In Liam's hands was a small gift bag containing a handmade thank you card and a seashell he'd found that morning, simple treasures from a child's heart. The weight of it seemed to anchor him to his chair despite his obvious restlessness. When Maya finally appeared on the boardwalk, her simple sundress catching the sea breeze, Liam spotted her immediately. "She's here!" he exclaimed, his face lighting up with unrestrained joy. Ethan felt his breath catch as he turned to watch her approach. There was a quiet dignity in her walk, a grace that spoke of hard-won peace rather than resignation. She had chosen to come, one last gift of closure before they departed. Liam could no longer contain himself. He bounded from his chair, racing across the short distance with his gift bag clutched tightly. "Maya, you came." Her smile as she knelt to receive his enthusiastic hug illuminated her entire face. "Of course I did," she said softly, accepting his offered gift with genuine appreciation. "I wanted to say goodbye properly." From his place at the table, Ethan watched this exchange with a heart both full and breaking, witnessing the natural connection between his son and the woman who might have been his mother in another life. "Thank you for coming," he said simply. When Maya approached the table, Liam's hand firmly in hers. Her eyes met his with quiet understanding. Some goodbyes need to be said in person. They walked along the shoreline after leaving the cafe, Liam darting ahead to chase gulls and collect shells, giving the adults a measure of privacy within sight. The tide was going out, leaving wet stretches of sand marked with the days. Stories, footprints, shell fragments, and the occasional treasure washed up from the ocean's depths. "He's remarkable," Maya observed, watching Liam's exuberant exploration. "So full of life and curiosity." "He gets his resilience from having faced challenges early," Ethan replied. "The heart condition taught him to value each good day." A comfortable silence settled between them, a notable shift from the tension of their earlier encounters. They had moved beyond accusations and explanations to something approaching understanding, if not complete reconciliation. "I received your letter," Maya said finally. "About your plans to take leave from the company." Ethan nodded. "It's time. The board will survive without me for a while." "And Liam? Will he adapt to leaving New York?" Children are surprisingly adaptable when they feel secure in what matters most. Ethan paused, choosing his next words carefully. "I want him to learn different values than those that guided my choices 10 years ago." Maya stooped to pick up a perfect sand dollar, turning it gently in her hands before offering it to Ethan. "For Liam's collection," she said. As he accepted it, their fingers brushed momentarily. Maya's eyes met his, steady and clear. "Just love him better than you loved me," she said softly. "That's all I ask." The words held no bitterness, only a gentle wisdom born of hard experience. "I was enough back then," she continued, her voice barely audible above the waves. "I just wish you had believed it." In that moment, the full weight of what he had sacrificed became unbearably clear. Not just a marriage, but a chance to become the man he might have been with her beside him. "I know that now," he acknowledged. "Too late. But I know." The setting sun stretched their shadows across the sand as they returned to where Liam was constructing an elaborate shell arrangement. The boy looked up with a smile that dimmed slightly when he sensed the farewell approaching. "Do you really have to go back to New York tomorrow?" he asked Maya, his voice small against the vastness of the ocean. "I'm not going anywhere, Liam," she assured him gently. "I'll still be right here at the clinic. It's you and your dad who are leaving." "But Dad says we might come back to live," Liam persisted, seeking confirmation of this hope. Maya glanced at Ethan, who nodded slightly. "If that happens," she said carefully, "we'll see each other again. But until then..." With deliberate movements, Maya untied the worn bracelet from her wrist. The red, black and green threads faded but intact after all these years. She knelt before Liam, taking his small hand in hers. "I want you to have this," she said, tying it carefully around his wrist. "In Kenya, these colors have special meaning: red for courage, black for the people, and green for the land." Liam's eyes widened as he recognized the match to his father's bracelet. "But isn't it important to you?" "Very important," Maya confirmed. "That's why I'm giving it to you, to remind you that someone is always watching over you, even from a distance." The boy threw his arms around her neck in a fierce hug. "I'll take care of it forever," he promised. Over Liam's shoulder, Maya's eyes met Ethan's one final time, a look that contained a decade of loss, a moment of forgiveness, and the quiet acceptance that some paths, once diverged, can never fully rejoin. As Maya rose to leave, Ethan simply nodded, words inadequate. For the moment, she turned and walked away, her figure silhouetted against the sunset, not looking back. "She's not saying goodbye forever, is she, Dad?" Liam asked, his small hand finding his father's. "No," Ethan answered, watching Maya's retreating form with a bittersweet smile. "I think she's just giving us space to find our way back, if that's where our journey leads." Together, father and son stood watching until Maya disappeared from view, the bracelet on Liam's wrist catching the last golden rays of daylight, a tangible reminder of connections that transcend time, distance, and even heartbreak. Thank you for joining me for this story of love, forgiveness, and new beginnings. If it touched your heart, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who might need these words today. Subscribe to our channel for more heartfelt stories every week. Remember, sometimes the bravest thing we can do is to let go with love. Until next time, take care of your hearts, dear friends.